Thank you very much for this beautiful invitation and introduction, and for this invitation to participate in such a renowned seminar, because for me it is a real honor to participate in Women Scholars Network, right, from the feminist point of view, and to present the research that the workshop for the academic study of religion has started recently. I should say, first of all, that I agree with the majority of what Dorota said, but now I will focus a little bit on the research that we are conducting right now. And I would like to make some kind of small presentation of what we have at the moment. And then maybe in the discussion part, I can also comment on the ideas and questions that Dorota raised. So I will share my screen if you allow me. I have a few. Oh my God. I have few slides here. I always make slides because it is easier for me.
Could you please make a slideshow?
Yes, yes, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I need to see my, so you can't see, I cannot share and read my text at the same time, right?
I am afraid no. This is the limitations of the Zoom.
Okay, so then it will be like this. I'm sorry, but I haven't printed my text. Okay, yes.
Do you think it would be possible to close this format background? Maybe then the slides would be larger.
Format background, how should I do it?
There is X on the right side, upper.
So in that side gray bar, yeah. You got it.
Good.
Now it is okay? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So the starting point of our research is the idea that Dorota also said that every person has his or her unique identity, which consists of many elements. It develops in time and changes depending on new social circumstances the person experiences. In the study of religion, the term religious identity is sometimes used, although we cannot find an entry, for example, for this notion in the Encyclopedia of Religion, like a main resource, like the first. In their recent book, Religion in 50 Words, Aaron Hughes and Russell McCutcheon, for example, they argue that identity studies highlight marginalized groups that are often overlooked in scholarships by aiming to register their experience, their distinctiveness, and their worth. And this is exactly what our research has aimed, because the research is aimed at studying of two such marginalized groups, the people who one day found themselves on the intersection of religious identity and gender identity. These identities, of course, overlap, at times conflicting with each other, in times contesting, and sometimes even living peacefully. But identity we rather see as not static, not essential, but a developing attribute. The groups that our research studies, these are feminists and LGBT people who identify themselves as being religious or believing in God in the present or in the past. And these two groups are marginalized both by their religious communities in Ukraine, as well as secular feminists and LGBT communities to some extent. We are aware that these two groups have distinctive experiences of combining these aspects of their identities, because homosexuality is much stronger stigmatized in religious communities than feminism is. But we are also aware that these two groups do exist in Ukrainian society, although the churches on one hand and secular feminist and LGBT communities on the other prefer not to notice them and to exclude their problems from their agenda. Both feminists and LGBT people use various strategies of reconciliation of their religious beliefs with their values of equality in the case of feminists and their sexuality in the case of LGBT people. Therefore, the goal of our research is to study the personal experience of present or former believers who identify themselves as being LGBT and or feminist, LGBT people and or feminists. just a few words about the situation, general situation in Ukraine, what it is for everybody to understand the field where we work. The general population of Ukraine is estimated as more than 41 million people. And according to some sociological data that we have, in 2020, 67.9% of Ukrainian population identify themselves as believers. At the same time, 16% of these people can define their confessional belonging. So the others are not so sure about what confession they belong to. 48% claim to visit religious communities for religious holidays only, and 22% claim to visit churches every week. So this is a big discussion in Ukrainian religious studies about whether we really can say that 67% of Ukrainian population is religious, to what extent they are religious and so on, but we do not touch it in our research. Concerning the confessional division, 61% of those people who identified themselves as believers claim to be Orthodox Christians, 10% Greek Catholics, and 9% ordinary Christians. We don't have any statistical data on the quantity of feminists in Ukraine, and we also don't have any statistical data on LGBT people. But grounding on the research in Western countries, we assume that homosexual people constitute from 2 to 10% of Ukrainian population, but we know very little about them. And we also do not know any numbers about people who are feminists and LGBT, and at the same time, they identify themselves as religious or believing. So beginning June 2021, the workshop of the Academic Study of Religion, this is the new name of the organization that Milda mentioned. It is an NGO which unites religious studies scholars, is carrying out the research called Combining the Incompatible, and this research is jointly funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The team which is involved in research is not very big, but at the same time, quite big enough to make very good research. And most of the team is here present at this seminar. It's Ksenia Gurji, Irina Kaplan, Linia Pedgorna, Konstantin Polishchuk, and Olena Strelnik. As I have mentioned before, the goal of the research is to study the personal experiences of believers who identify themselves as being feminists and or LGBT people. Now we are in the middle of the second part of our research. We're interviewing present or former believers. We defined the research to be qualitative, not quantitative. Therefore, we aim at interviewing from 30 to 40 people, women, men, non-binary people who are 18 years old and older. The selection of respondents is based on the criteria of self-identification. The potential respondents should identify themselves with a certain religion at present or in the past, or to be feminists and or LGBT people at present or in the past. We use the snowball sampling, trying to reach people from various gender and age groups, as well as from various geographical regions of Ukraine. Anyway, as we see it now, the studied groups are quite difficult to reach out. The main research method is deep semi-structured interviews conducted online and offline. Our research is work in progress. Therefore, we don't have results yet, but we can see some general tendencies, which I would like to call today preliminary observations. So far, we have conducted 13 interviews with 10 women, 2 men, and 1 non-binary person. The youngest respondent is 21 years old, the oldest 42. All 13 respondents have higher education. 6 respondents are from Western Ukraine, other respondents represent other parts of Ukraine, and 1 now studies in Great Britain even. 12 of the respondents claim to be feminists. 1 respondent is homosexual male, 1 homosexual female, 1 bisexual female, and 1 non-binary person. Talking about their religions, 4 of them identify themselves as being believers of Greek Catholic Church. We have 3 Orthodox Christians, 2 Catholics, 2 Muslim, 1 Protestant, but in the past, and 1 agnostic. Next slide. Yes. Oi, what happened? Can you see my last slide?
We see white screen.
Now?
Yes, we can see.
Great, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so about observations. It is extremely difficult to find homosexual males to talk to. We have 3 cases when we turn to such people, but they refuse to participate in the study. And we suggest that this happens because of the heavy stigmatization of homosexual men in religious communities, which sometimes happen to be more tolerant towards homosexual women. Although the feminist community is not so well institutionalized in Ukraine as LGBT communities are, it is easier to find feminist respondents than LGBT people. We suggest that this happens because of the more tolerant attitude towards feminists than towards homosexual people in Ukrainian society. For example, according to JFK Ukraine survey, 40% of respondents wouldn't like their neighbors to be homosexuals. High level of education of all the respondents can be the result of the snowball sampling when people recommend for interview their friends who have the same level of education. On the other hand, we tend to suggest that people with higher level of education are more prone to reflect on their worldview and values, religious and secular, trying to reconcile their competing identities. The interviewed feminist respondents tend to divide into 2 groups. Finally, the first group, where people finally quit their religion, which they used to believe in, and this is what Dorota also mentioned. Yes, they used to believe in because they were brought up in this religious tradition. And then when they realized that it doesn't correlate with their feminist beliefs, they quit the religion. And the second group continues to be a part of a certain community looking for feminist interpretation of the sacred text or subduing with the restrictions toward women in the church. You can see on the second slide, I will not read it, but you can see at this slide. Oh no, you can't see it. Unfortunately. Okay. Nevertheless, we have 2 very beautiful quotes from our respondents about the examples of these 2 attitudes, example of the second group of feminists. And the last but not the least, when we elaborated the general idea of our research, we clearly understood that no one in Ukraine has ever studied religious feminists and LGBT people. We are fully aware that our study is very important for the development of the field of equal rights for women and LGBT people within religious communities, and it will promote reflections on the topic in broader society. But we were really surprised that our respondents emphasized the importance of being heard. They do not feel comfortable about speaking publicly about their beliefs in both religious and feminist or LGBT communities, but they agreed to participate in our research because they wanted other people within the church or outside of it to be aware of their existence, of the outdated position of the churches towards feminists and LGBT people. Thank you very much for your attention. This is what I wanted to tell you. Thank you. And I'm also looking for the discussion about our 3 countries and the situation with LGBT and religion here. Thank you.